to the cloud.
It goes where?
It goes to the cloud.
Okay.
And I have to consent. Yes, consented.
So Cecily, is it available from now on? This session will be available?
Yes.
It's recorded and you can figure out how to get us, because if I have to leave.
Yeah, we'll just send you the link.
Right. I'll try and upload it to YouTube and send out the link to whoever wishes.
It just comes as an email. You don't need to go onto YouTube. I just get it on my email and I'll send it.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic.
So let's just combine. I want to add the PowerPoint to the email. So if you want to send me the email, and then I will forward it to the whole group with the PowerPoint.
We've got Shilna. We can't see you.
Terrible bright light right behind us.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll see you.
Another chair. I'm happy with that.
Yes, that's actually better, Mom.
Who sounds like me.
Okay, Shilna, we haven't got your camera. You've got your sound. We've got Jean.
Do not want to do.
Hi.
Okay.
Is it Shirna?
Yes. Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a guest with me.
That's fine. Lovely. Hi. Hi, Jean. How are you?
Hi, Bev. It's Tanya Jaffe, Sharon's sister-in-law.
Oh,
Shirna's my mom.
Okay. So are you sitting at the back, or are you gonna join next to her?
We'll sit at the back in the meantime.
Okay, perfect. And hi, Jean. How are you? We've met once before. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yes, we met before. At Liat's wedding. At my niece's wedding, Liat. Do you remember Liat Tolkien?
You're talking to me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. No, I remember for sure. For sure. I'm just trying to think.
I have to look on. We're just trying to get our mic working. We're not sure what to do, whether we're going to be on a tablet or on a laptop. We're not very good at Zoom, so we're just trying to get ourselves sorted out.
No problem. Okay, so maybe in another minute we should start. Leslie, what do you think?
Yes.
With the people who are here?
Yes, give them another minute. People are having problems getting on.
Yeah, sure.
Jean, we can't hear you. I know you're talking, but you're on mute.
Sorry, I just realized that now. I was going to ask how many people you're expecting.
We're expecting about 10, I think.
Nice.
We kind of got our idea and then advertised it within a short space of time. So we got a nice group, but some people can't actually come on anymore, but we're going to get going, I think. So is that your mom, Tan, trying to get on a different?
Yes, we're trying to get on a laptop.
Okay. You might want to switch one of your instruments off, because otherwise it might have an echo for you. All right.
I see that you are recording. Have you asked everyone's permission for that recording?
No, I'm gonna ask.
before you finish.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, Susan's on. Good.
Okay, Ali, I can see that you've come on. I
I'm
can't
not sure if it's
see
Ali
you.
or Louis who's on.
Oh, okay.
We
Right.
can't hear or see you. All right.
Hi, Susan.
Okay. So I think we're going to get started. So I am recording. Does anybody have a problem with my recording the session? There are going to be there is going to be a PowerPoint that I'm going to send out as well. The recording will only be for the people who signed up. Does anybody have a problem with that? No, we're good to go. All right.
Thanks.
Let's just see that everybody's connected here. All right, I think we can start, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to, I just want to share my screen with you. I just want to welcome you all here. I just want to move you over to the side and make that a bit bigger, and then you can see. So I really want to welcome you and thank you for joining at such short notice. Sorry, I just want to get this. Okay. So by coming here together and in other places, because there are many places that people are coming together now to discuss trauma, it validates that trauma in fact exists and it's worthy of discussion. And it creates a sense of togetherness and resource. And we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about what it's been to come together and be a resource for each other. So what this afternoon is going to look like is Cecily's going to introduce the idea, because we're a small group, of what trauma is. We want it to be interactive. We want you to share with us what your thoughts are, what your questions are, what trauma is. We're going to look at the symptoms of trauma, because trauma is in fact an invisible guest, and we only know that it's there by the symptoms that it produces. We're going to do an exercise. That's something that we can practically take with us. And then we're going to end with real practical opportunities of what can we do to integrate the pain and the hurt and the stress and the frozen nature of trauma. So this is a workshop that's going to speak in more general terms. I will send out an email after this to see if anybody wants to continue on a more personal level with through Ezra. This is a more general opening introductory workshop. And Cecily is sharing this with me. We are being supported by Ezra. It's supporting the whole concept, which we're thrilled about. So Cecily, it's over to you.
Okay, all right. So as Bev said, we're facilitators. We volunteer our time with Ezra. We have experiences in all sorts of fields, helping people basically. So let's talk about it.
Cecily, sorry, we're having difficulty hearing you. Can you either put your volume up? Is anybody else having difficulty?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, how's this? Let me try this now.
And can you just lift your camera then, Cecily, so we can see your whole, there you go.
Okay, so trauma it's not the event itself, it's about how the body responds to the event. It's not only defined by a major or a catastrophic disturbing event. Trauma is anything that overloads our capacity to cope at the time, and it continues to be emotionally challenging. The same event may not be as traumatic for somebody else, regardless of what's happened, but for some people, trauma is valid. And for anybody who feels that they have trauma, it's valid for them. And it's emotionally challenging. So there are different forms of trauma. There's an acute trauma that may be something from a single event, something dramatic has happened. There may be a chronic form of trauma when you're exposed to repeated, prolonged exposure. It may be child abuse, it may be sexual abuse. And there is also complex trauma, which you get exposed to multiple occasions of trauma. So what is trauma? Well, you've got the big T. And we talk about major events that we usually see as traumatic. It could be natural disasters, the combinations of war, genocide, sexual or physical assault. Death of a loved one is classified as major trauma. Terrorist attack, domestic violence, major surgery, or a life-threatening illness. Emotional neglect or abuse. These would be all classified as traumas. Then you have trauma with a small t, which is maybe financial concerns, interpersonal conflict, bullying, moving, adoption or miscarriage, divorce or infidelity, giving birth, chronic or mental, physical illness. So however the trauma is defined, it's how you yourself feel it. Then there is also a secondary trauma. If you're in a caring profession, or you happen to have a friend, or you are in a medical profession, you can also experience trauma. You hear the stories, you get involved in it, and you can also have the same sorts of symptoms that a trauma survivor will have. So these are basically forms of trauma. We're not going to go into details, but I just want to get some feedback from the people who are here. Would you class yourselves as having experienced trauma? You want to raise your hand? Okay. Okay, and so we have the symptoms, and then we can talk about what the symptoms are. Bev, do you want to go on to talk about what usually comes up in the symptoms of the traumatic stress?
So I'm just going to, can you all hear me clearly?
I can hear you more clearly. I was with Cecily.
Okay. Cecily, do you have earphones that you could put on? A headset?
No.
I'm saying that's difficult hearing you.
Not here. Okay. I'll find that.
Okay. Oops. No, hang on a sec. Sorry, let me just go back to you. Okay. Okay. So as Cecily was saying, oops, trauma by its nature is not the event itself. It's not what happened to the person, but rather a response of your nervous system to an overwhelming experience, an experience that we can't manage. And it's actually a very intelligent, function. If you see a young child who's brought up in an abusive or neglectful home, they close off a part of them so that they can continue developing and growing. But unfortunately, so it helps you survive better when trauma is in essence a frozen part. But it's hidden. We never see trauma. We only see the symptoms, and it shows itself through numbness. Like I don't feel anything. I look at my phone and I can see there's a war going on in Vietnam, or there's a war going on in Sderot. I feel nothing. Or by hyperactivation, extreme stress. And in order to function, we have to shut down parts of our body, parts of ourselves, our mental and relational capacity. The pain of trauma always comes as a boundary violation, as something that comes out of relation. Does somebody, could I just ask everybody to just mute themselves because there's a background noise. Can everybody hear that? Okay.
Don't know.
Okay. So I just want, now's the time we would like you to help us. What if any of what we've said resonates with you about trauma? How have you experienced what we've said? Yes, Tanya.
So Bev, firstly, can you hear me?
Yeah, very clearly.
Oh, good. Oh, excellent, excellent. So 2 questions I just want to ask you is, first of all, because I'm actually making notes as you speak, you said that numbness and extreme stress and overwhelm, these are obviously responses. Are these, they must be either subconscious responses or conscious or a combination of both. In other words, some of these responses must be just automatic depending on the person.
That's beautiful. That's really a beautiful question, Tanya, and I'm happy you brought that. Shall I address it, Cecily, or would you like to?
Yeah.
And Bev, sorry, my question
Go
is, what do you mean by trauma is hidden and frozen? That's not so, yeah.
Okay, so that's great. I'm going to answer that question first, and then go on to your second part. It's a great question, and it helps with our clarification. When I say trauma is hidden, we don't see trauma, but we see the symptoms of trauma. So what we see is the depression, the hyperactivation, the numbness, I feel nothing, the disconnect. There's a part of you, part of us, it's almost, if you think of it as a room in your body that gets shut, it's dark, the key, it's locked, and we don't go in there anymore. So it's almost like we're walking around with your arm behind your back, for many of us, or contracted, and we think we're normal, right? We don't even realize that we always walk around like this. And you said, is it normal? And that is so beautiful, Tanya, because I want to speak into the fact that we are all, in fact, born into a traumatized world. You and I were not just placed here. We're not 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. We're hundreds and thousands of years old, with resilience, with ancestors that have all come to us. We are the development of a lot of history that's come down to us. So you have your personal biography, your parents, your grandparents. As a culture, we have a collective, it could be the Holocaust, right? Where we all born into a place we think that's the norm. Does that make sense? Where you might have a parent who was part of the Holocaust, right? And every time they see a soldier in Israel, their body tenses. And that gets passed down to us. So there's a collective aspect, and then there's our personal biography. And that's why you might respond by hyperactivation, because that's always how you've responded. And I might be, I just can't feel it. I feel nothing. Does that kind of answer the question for you?
Yes, definitely.
Great.
And there's both physical aspects of it, and there may be psychological. So the physical aspects, you can be feeling dizzy or faint. You can be shaking and trembling. Your breathing gets very fast. You can't sleep. You might suddenly be deciding to be addicted to something, anything to distract you from these feelings. So you might be overeating, over drinking, and you might have pains in your body. All these are related to the stress of the trauma. And we're talking about how you recognize that. And the psychological ones, the guilt, the helplessness, the anger, the shame, also relief. You know, I'm here, it didn't happen to me, but then you feel guilty about that. So there's a whole variety of physical and emotional responses to trauma.
Right.
Go on, Bev.
And as Cecily said about that part of us that gets frozen, it's like a tree, right? Where the water just flows around it, life continues. But there's a part that doesn't get updated, it's just frozen. And like Cecily says, just like it's disconnected within our bodies, we need our hands to move and our heads to move. Just like if that part of our body doesn't move, there's a disconnect. And we relate to the world in our relationships, only part of us shows up. Because as you say, there's so much that's in the unconscious. If I may liken it to, this is a beautiful metaphor that I think Thomas Hubel says, if you're watching something on television, you don't like what you're seeing, and you mute it, and you take that television and you throw it into the depths of the ocean. It's still playing, but you are not aware of it until something triggers you, and that's a sign. Go down there to that television and let's bring it up and see what's going on for you. It's a portal. Anytime you're triggered, that's a portal. Let's look there, let's stay there. So, are there any other questions before we go on to what the symptoms actually look like that Cecily's already touched on? Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, so people react in different ways. I'm so sorry that I'm not able. Is that better? Right? Yeah, that's better. Let me just open it a bit more. People react in many different ways to traumatic events. They might have trouble sleeping. They might be feeling fearful. They have intrusive thoughts. An intrusive thought is something that's always on your mind, and it takes up all your energy. Lack of appetite, too much eating, numbness, disconnection, and depression. It always comes in disconnection. And as Cecily said, in addictive fashions, sometimes. Let me just see. Any comments? At this point? No? Okay. So we're not only here today because of the traumas that we all carry, and we all carry trauma, because trauma can even be, as Cecily said, not active, right? Your parents were abusive, but it can also be a neglect. If a child didn't get something, that's also a form of trauma. We're here also because for some of us, we want to help other people with their trauma. And how do you do that? So let's just have a look at some of these. If you know somebody who appears traumatized, consider approaching that person and asking if they would like to talk. They're looking for connection. They might not know it, but that's really what they want. They don't want a self-help book. They want a listening ear. Give them the opportunity to share with you. Listen to them non-judgmentally and with empathy. I'll tell you in a minute the difference between empathy and sympathy. Ask directly if there's anything they would like from you at this time. I've heard that question is amazing. People have said, wow, what do you need? I need a meal. Can you just make me a meal? Okay. Encourage them to connect with a professional if you or they think they may need support, and try to come up with coping strategies together. One thing that people don't want, they don't necessarily want your advice. I think you should go to the gym. I think you should go read a movie. What would make you feel more comfortable? Oh, I'd love it if you committed to doing a 10-minute walk with me every day. Oh, I can or I can't. Okay, that's a negotiation then. I can do it every second day, let's just say. Okay. The part about empathy is likened to, let's say, if you see someone in a hole, either you can jump in the hole with them and then, oy vey, neither of you can come out. That's sympathy. Or empathy is, well, wow, I can come into the hole with you, but I also know how to leave. I know this is hard for you. Okay, I can see this is hard for you. Not, oy vey, that must be terrible. And you know what happened to me? Empathy is when you can be with another person. Sympathy is when you use yourself. And that is not always helpful. People are not looking for sympathy, they want empathy. Any questions there, comments? Cecily, did you want to comment? No?
No, it's fine. Keep
Okay.
going.
Sorry, Bev, I just missed one word in your definition of sympathy.
Pardon?
I missed one word in your definition of sympathy. Can you just say that again?
So empathy is I'm with you, and
Yes.
sympathy is we're kind of enmeshed.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Oy vey, that must be so terrible. That's not what you want to hear. I understand you. In fact, the Me Too movement, is everybody familiar with the Me Too movement that came out when women were sexually abused? It's a very recent movement. It's not a movement for women. That's the amazing thing. The Me Too movement is a movement for survivors of sexual abuse. And it says Me Too, and that's what empathy is. You are not alone. The whole thing with trauma all the time, it's connection, connection, connection. You are not alone. And that's what empathy is. I felt this before, you feeling it. I feel you, you feel me feeling you. I'm here with you. Okay? Any questions? All right. Here are some great time-tested coping methods that you might find helpful. Call a friend and share with them. Get a hug, physical touch, even if you give it to yourself, is amazing. Feel listened to. And I don't mean a friend that's going to say, "Oi, Vaz, you know what happened to me?" You might need to say to a friend, "I want to share something with you. I don't want advice. I don't want anything. I just want you to listen." That is incredibly, incredibly healing. Go for a walk by yourself or with a friend. Listen to calming music. Reduce your exposure to media coverage. I'm going to speak to that in a minute. Talk to a professional. I wanted to stop there a minute. We could all be reading self-help books. Self-help books don't work because, and this is crucial, wounding and trauma is always caused by inappropriate boundary violations, right? When somebody shoots a rocket into your sovereign country, that is a boundary violation. We can understand that, right? When a parent abuses a child, that's a boundary violation. When a parent is walled off and not responsive to the child, that's a boundary violation, okay? That's why the healing comes. Healing comes in relation. We are not supposed to live in caves by ourselves. We live together. That's why we're hardwired for that. That's our DNA. So it's not about getting a self-help book. Not that I'm putting them down. Read books. But the healing will come when someone hears you. Avoid using alcohol and drugs, as Cecily said. All forms of addiction are instead of relationship. Because I can't get what I want from the people around me, I need to self-soothe somehow. That's how we're wired. We need to self-soothe. Meditate or be mindful. We're going to talk more about that. I just wanted to share a bit about the reduce your exposure to media coverage. You know, we're living in a time when we are blessed. We are blessed that we have this technology, right? We can come together. We can create spaces of support. On the other hand, when we are overwhelmed, and this is an eating metaphor, we cannot digest more. That's why I can open up my phone right in my own home and see what's going on in Sderot and walk myself off to the pool for a swim. I can be disconnected because I cannot digest any more. If my nervous system is completely relaxed, I can digest. I cannot digest what's going on in Kathmandu and India. There comes, I can't anymore. That is a sign of overwhelm. That's a sign of trauma. Any
Bev?
comments, questions, Sean?
Just two quick questions. Firstly, you said trauma is when boundaries are crossed. That's what trauma is, when there's a breaking of boundaries. So is that a general rule for trauma? What about like if a loved one becomes ill or if you become ill? Like how is that an example of boundaries crossed, or moving house, let's say?
Okay, that's
It's not as clear.
great questions. Yeah, so if a loved one becomes ill and the role might reverse in that if a parent becomes ill, a child might need to take care of them. So in the relation, the boundaries have changed and shifted. A parent might become infirm and need your help. When you move house, or in Corona, right? Corona wasn't like somebody hurting us, but we were separated from each other. A trauma symptom is we fragmented. I'm in my corner with my pain, you there, and we don't know how to cross that bridge to each other. Or I'm walled off. I've got no time for you, so sorry. Okay? And you can't get in. Cecily, would you like to add anything?
Yes, no, I think that's right. I think the corona is a classic example that we were traumatized. We get all these messages coming at us on television, bombarding us with the do's and the don'ts, and it's the feeling of helplessness which defines trauma for me. You're out of control. Previously, you had an existence, you knew where everything was, you knew how to cope. All of a sudden, something happened to change things, and that's where we feel.
Can you speak closer to the mic, please, Cecily? We can't hear you.
Okay, that's when you feel completely helpless, when you lose control. You lose control of your life, your feelings, your responses. And that's when you do need to connect with other people. And sometimes other people are in the same situation. So they've said everybody's walled off. So you can't. And the trauma of these situations has been dreadful. You know, what made it very special was that the people who went out of their way to say Kaddish in the hospital. I mean, that was wonderful for people who were suffering to be involved with them. So it's moving the boundaries, as Beth said. The boundaries are artificial, but you respond to it because this is how you see the trauma.
Beautiful. And what you added was, Cecily, within trauma is that we're in those chains of shame. We're being held in chains of shame, and the shame grows and flourishes in secrecy and judgment and quiet. That's what it needs. It loves darkness, and it loves you to feel you are the only person in the whole wide world who's so small and little. And the antidote is empathy, is shining a torch on it and having someone with that come together with you. The opposite of shame is, I know exactly what you're feeling. Me too. Okay? There's a common humanity to all of us, which we tend to sometimes forget. We are not alone. We are all in this together. But we have our personal biographies and our personal traumas. Any questions or comments? No, okay.
Beverly, I can't see you. Do other people see Beverly?
Yes, I can.
You can? No, I can't. All right. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, I don't know. Okay, let's just see how we share the screen again. Okay. Let me just stop the share. Would you like to do an exercise together that you can take away with you of how you can
Sure.
self-regulate, how you can help yourself? Is the group up to that? Yeah?
Sure.
Any questions before we go into it? We're going to spend some time now. Before I go into this, the idea of meditation and mindfulness, some people are like, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you this. You don't need to believe in gravity. But if I hold this up and I let go, it's going to fall, whether you believe it or not. Mindfulness is simply a way of being here. Not I want to be in my evolved self, or I want to be in the past where it was so much better. I'm here. And it might be just spending time noticing trees around you, taking time out. What did I want to say to you? So, and it has tremendous effects of self-soothing and calming. And the more we practice it, the more we can show up in the world being responsible rather than being reactive. Reactive is when we respond from a much younger place, respond like children, right? As opposed to being responsible, and that we are informed by our feelings and we take responsibility. So we're going to look at a beautiful, I think, something called RAIN. Let's have a look at this together. Okay. Okay, RAIN is an acronym. Oh, sorry that I've got this. Okay, RAIN is an acronym, and it guides us in bringing mindfulness and compassion to difficult situations, difficult emotions. With practice, we can find presence in the midst of whatever arises. So let's just take a minute to come into this space, feel where we're sitting, sit comfortably in our chairs. And let's just notice if when we think of something that traumatizes us, an experience, let's just recognize what's happening, what's coming up for me. I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm feeling tired. It's making me angry, frustrated. Just recognize it. And then let us just allow it. Allow whatever's coming up. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. I'm allowed to feel angry, annoyed, sad, weepy. Then let's begin to just investigate, where in our bodies do we feel that? Feel a tightening in my chest, my belly, my throat. Let's just be curious. And then possibly with putting our hand on our heart, let's nurture ourselves. It's okay. It's fine that I feel this way. You're okay, Beverly. You're good. And then if you're ready, you can come back. Then of course there's after rain. After rain, don't know why, sorry, I can't get this big enough. Oh, there we go. After the rain, when we continue to practice self-compassion, we have such strong voices that put us down, that have no place. Hi, Naomi. We were just doing a practice that we can take with us. I will send the everything out that you can see after. Would anybody like to share how that was for them? Is it something you could spend time doing. We did it so briefly. Tanya, did it resonate with you? Not with you.
Well, I'm just wondering why shame is such a big part of trauma.
Mm,
Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do.
Things happen to us that are not our faults, but for some reason we seem to take it on ourselves in a self-punishing way. That's not clear to me why we do that.
Okay.
I mean, I have some ideas about it, but I wonder what you would like to say about it.
Okay. Cecily, I will comment, and anybody else?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's shame that we have survived. Certainly for child survivors, a lot of them bring that emotion, and it's very hard to get rid of it. Shame that you are feeling this way because you're brought up to suppress your feelings. Why are you feeling this way? Other people have coped with this. Why can't you? And so you don't accept your own feelings. Shame comes in all sorts of ways. Yes.
Thank you. Shirna?
Hi, I wanted to say something about shame.
Hmm.
I'm very guilty of shame, and I try to hide always my feelings of shame because I always feel that people won't accept me if I reveal what's really going on.
Beautiful.
So my problem with shame is trying to hide truth in order to be accepted by others.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Shame sits on, if I show you who I am, as Shirna so beautifully put it, you might not love me. And that's what we want. We want love. We want to be part of. Does anybody else want to comment before I comment about shame? That's beautiful. So that is the biggest component, I would say, what Shirna said, that it sits on, if I show you who I really am, you're not going to love me. I'll speak more into that. Tanya, I see you'd like to say something.
No, just a very small point, Bev, on the subject of shame, which I'm curious to hear what you'll say. But I just recently read a book by Dr. Edith Agar called The Choice. It was also not about shame. I mean, it's very advanced, or I would say very I don't even know what the word is, but she speaks obviously about a whole lot of things and about the choice and our reactions, and shame is one of them. But I just found that particular book to be unbelievable in the realm of shame and healing and hiding feelings and overcoming trauma. So maybe at some point.
Beautiful. Thank you. Maybe you'd like to, Tanya, do you know how to write in the chat the name of the book? Or, if you just tell me, and when I send out an email, I will. It's called The Choice, right?
Choice by Dr. Edith Agar. E-G-E-R. I'd highly recommend it. Highly recommend.
E-G-E-R. Eager. Edith. Okay, I will send that out to the group. Thank you. When I'm vulnerable, that takes courage. If I'm going to show you who I really am, that takes courage. What shame does so beautifully, it keeps us separate. I'm ashamed of myself. I am by myself, and I'm in my own corner. And it's very important. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, other than what I said earlier about shame, how it flourishes in the keep it a secret, keep it hidden, keep it dark, and how when we shine a torch on it, how it can't survive. I just want to highlight two things. That language is so important, the language we use in describing how we feel. And Shirna, you said, I am ashamed. And I'd be interested to hear how you feel having said that, because that's such a vulnerable thing to say, but it makes me feel, and I would bet my bottom dollar everybody closer to you. because wow, you're showing a side that, yes, I feel that too, me too. So the difference between a few things, just in terms of our language, shame and guilt. Guilt is, I feel bad that. Humiliation is when somebody else says something to me. My boss said to me, you did a really bad job. I felt so humiliated. Embarrassed is, oi, you know what happened? It's kind of funny, right? It's happened to all of us, right? But shame is that deep, dark place that I believe is an inner voice from a place in our childhood. You're a bad girl. You should have, that lovely word, should. Those are inner voices that we take, we learn. I was talking to a client today. She said, but my parents didn't say bad things to me. I just know I should have, and I'm a failure. I said, you weren't born with those words. You learned it somewhere. So I believe, Claire, that it comes from a very young place, a sense of shame. And the minute you can share it with someone, that vulnerability will help the healing with the connection.
I just want to say something.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, you're in the middle of talking. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I was just going to ask Claire if she wanted to respond, but Claire, would you like to hear Naomi first?
Sure.
I'm sorry. You can speak also. I mean, okay, anyway. I just finished with a client who's had an alcoholic father, and he is feeling very ashamed because he wasn't able to prevent his father from beating up his mother. He felt helpless all along, and that's where his shame is coming from. That he feels so inadequate that he wasn't stronger or more powerful at a young age, which of course is not rational. But he says he feels so ashamed that he wasn't able to be stronger and more powerful. So the shame is coming from the childhood, but it's the helpless feeling that he isn't what he would have liked to have been.
Right.
That's where it's coming from.
So that's so beautiful. I'm reminded of Terry Real, who I follow him closely, on Depression in Men. He talks into what Naomi was saying, that when a parent behaves shamelessly, a father beats up on the mother or the children, the child will take on the shame. In other words, had the father had shame, he would have been able to contain himself, right? Shame would have helped him contain himself, but he was shameless, the father, so he behaved in this extremely violent way. And the child, in order to regulate the family again, because children want safety from their parents, so if there's chaos going on, they're going to try and regulate, they will take that on unconsciously. I feel ashamed. They'll take on the shame that the father didn't have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. Claire, what would you like to offer?
I think there's a very strong societal message that says you are supposed to be in control of everything that happens to you. And when something really bad happens, you feel that you failed in some way. Even if you didn't really cause it, the general cultural idea is that we're supposed to be on track most of the time. And when you get off track, I know for me, that's been a very big part of what I've gone through about loss, that I didn't do anything wrong. And yet I still have that feeling of having been guilty of something and having been maybe not as worthy as other people who don't have that comparison kind of thing.
That is so powerful and so deep, that we live in a context. We live in a context, and if we play along, then yes, we do exactly what Claire is talking about. We silence the voices, and we're in control, and I'm good, right? So good things happen to me. You must have done something really bad. And you remind me of Elie Wiesel, who saw his father being beaten in a concentration camp once. And his thought was not, I hate the Nazi. His thought was, why was my father so stupid to be caught? He'd taken on a perspective of the perpetrator rather than of the victim. And that's what our society encourages. if you like. And we come to spaces like this, change it, hopefully one person at a time, one world at a time. So thank you for that, Claire. Highlighting that. Any other comments, or shall we continue? Okay.
Can I just say one little thing about shame? I think largely shame is connected to low self-worth or low self-esteem in the collective society, not being acceptable. To reveal what's really going on in your life.
Mm-hmm. Because
a childhood issue.
Sorry?
Also a childhood issue.
Right.
Yes.
And also that our society is very performance-based, right? How much do you earn? Oh, you're successful according to those figures. How many clients do you have? And, you know, we need to break that trance. Because when we're under this trance, we're only showing up as a very narrow part of ourselves. And I'm talking to myself too. I'm not immune to this. I'm on my journey too. And that's very beautiful, Shirna. That
you can also be ashamed of a family. Like I was like, again, going back to another client who's ashamed of her parents who weren't the proper parents that she would have liked to have had. Not ashamed of herself, but ashamed of her family.
Right.
And expectations, there's certain expectations that one has of how a family should be, and it didn't pan out that way.
Beautiful. And that is, my friends, the portal. That place of shame is like, let me pause there a minute and look inside. What is it I want from my family that I'm not asking of myself? It only shows up, you should know, on your radar if it's something that you feel. Otherwise, it won't show up on your radar. And then you won't be able to be empathic. Tashuna, it is a gift in a way too, because me too, right? I hear you, I feel you, and I feel you feeling me. It's that connection. Any other insights, comments? Cecily, no?
No, that's good. This is so interesting that we're bringing out really the core issues.
Cecily, can you come a bit closer to the mic?
We're bringing out the core issues about the healing process. It's recognizing these emotions so that we can absorb them and move on. That's, can you hear me now?
It's not great.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So we're going to look at this one. Okay, here we go. Cecily offered. Cecily, would you like to talk into any of these?
Yes. Okay. So the first one.
Sorry. Let me just share it in a different fashion. Let me just go basic share. Okay. Can you? Oh, how do I get rid of this? Stop share. Sorry. Oh, hang on. There we go. Okay. Technically. Oh, so sorry. Technically challenged. I don't know why I can't get rid of this. Okay. I'm just gonna. Oh, there you go. You can see the whole thing. Right.
Okay. That's. We're talking about emotions and reactions during a particular time of emergency, and this could happen at any time. It might be when an event has happened.
It's hard to hear you. I don't know why.
All right. I'll let Bev continue. I don't want you struggling. Bev, do you want to?
Sorry. Okay. So I'm not familiar with this poster, the next two posters, but it's a poster.
It explains itself. It's
okay.
Explanatory.
Okay. So let's just see. Oh, okay. So step one, this is talking about sort of first aid. You see someone like let's say what happened in Meron, or what happened in Givat Ze'ev, or what happened when the first siren went off. Like, what do you do when you're in that panic? So I like the step one is that self-soothe that we were talking about. If you can't get a hug from someone else, give it to yourself. I can't actually read this.
Okay, let me try. We're talking about calming first. That's your first stage. Your second stage is you put your feet down and you concentrate on your senses. You look around for something which is maybe the same color, the same texture, so that your mind is focusing on something outside your body. That's important, that you move yourself out. Number 3, you breathe. You pay attention to your breathing. You might have to put one hand on your chest and your other on your stomach, and you breathe in and out very slowly, very carefully. Then you look at the sensations, number 4, the sensations in your body. One sensation at a time. If your hands are shaking, just stroke yourself, stop your hands. If you're sweating, your shoulders are hunched up, be aware of them and get your shoulders to go down. If your stomach is clenched, focus on it and get your stomach just to unwind. You have to keep the calm going. You think of something that makes you feel good. I have a safe place. I have a visual image that I always bring to mind. It's water, it's trees, and this really helps me relax. You need to have something spiritual that will help you. And you will find that this is a resource that you possess. Use it at these emotional times of emergency. You calming yourself in order to give support to others. This is the major thing. Get yourself calm and quiet. Okay, I hope you can hear that.
It's difficult, but
okay. Okay. We're looking at where trauma comes into stages. And for most of us, it's not, you don't just get over it. It's with you. And you learn to live with it, you learn to cope with it. So the event when you're in a routine, the trauma takes place. Your immediate response is to withdraw. You go into survival mode. You freeze, you flee, or you fight. All your panics are you can go through this quite a few times. You go in stage. Then you are aware of what has been happening. You make yourself conscious of it. You decide you may want to take action. You choose how you're going to deal with this situation. It may go up and down. It doesn't necessarily flow. And the idea is that you will reach a stage of integration, that it becomes part of you.
we'll talk more about the integration.
Yeah. All I want to stress is that trauma doesn't end, and you just go through it and you accommodate it in your body. You use your emotions to recognize it, not your brain. Your brain, you leave on one side, you just get in touch with the emotions. How you're feeling about the situation, where it is in your body. And then we start to integrate it to heal. Okay, I hope that was a little bit clearer. I'm trying to speak into the mic.
That was very helpful, Cecily.
Okay, good.
Any comments about questions?
It's not clear to me about the action. There's so many traumas that you can't do anything about. So what kind of actions are we talking about?
You need to be thinking about what makes you feel good. And that's recognizing where it is. It's helping others. It's doing movement, going for a walk, dancing, just moving yourself, your whole body. You use your 5 senses with these actions. You become aware of colour, you can be aware of smells. These are the actions that we're talking about. So it's your body, not your thoughts, which begins with action.
As Bessel van der Kolk will tell you, the body keeps score. Trauma is stored in our bodies. Very deep, as we spoke about in the beginning, that part that gets frozen. Any comments or thoughts about that? All right, thank you. Okay. So how do we actually integrate trauma? Firstly, we need to become more aware of our trauma, right? When we see these symptoms, could you just mute yourselves? There's some background noise of mine. Is there background noise for everyone? Or just me? Okay.
Sounds like wind or something.
Yeah.
Maybe this fan, my fan is
Oh, could you maybe just switch off could you just mute yourself and then you can thing if you want to talk? Oh, marvelous. Thank you so much.
That was that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we become aware of what that is through the symptoms that we see. We learn to read the trauma symptoms. And most importantly, we improve our relational capacities. How do we relate to people? How are we in that relational space? Because as I said earlier, it's inflicted often through inappropriate relation, and it's a boundary violation, and it heals through appropriate relation. So even if the trauma was inflicted by a parent, a good therapist can be part of the healing, right? Being with somebody who gets you, can hold that space for you. We train ourselves to feel each other when we communicate and increase our relational presence. I'm here with you. Okay, I want to be somewhere else. I'm here with you, and you can feel me feeling you. I'm going to talk into that in a minute, and there's an inner awareness of presence. This is something we can train through yoga, meditation, people who pray regularly. I always say to my very religious clients who pray, take one sentence. Prayer is prayer is wisdom that has been given down to us. It's such a gift. So if you connect to it, take one sentence that you can walk with through your day. I want to just share with you. I want to share with you an image of what I mean by your relational presence. Fear is actually an emotion of connection. We see this with little children. A child goes off to play, gets alarmed, is curious, becomes afraid, comes back to the parent. The parent holds the child. Okay? When the child can't, and all of us have parents who, for some reason, they're not able to hold us, right? That's where the fear gets turned into, that when the fear becomes so big that we need to then manage it. But that whole coming in and going out is what we do our whole life. We test, where are we safe? Are we safe here? Can we share? Then we go out. So curiosity and fear becomes courage and safety as for the mature adult, but we're always looking, where do we rest? Because where we rest is where we can become and emerge. We have such a natural need to emerge and grow, right? But we can only do it when we're resting in a place that we feel safe and we belong. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments? So you see that with children have a natural going in and out. But when the parent isn't able to contain, because we co-regulate each other, that's what we do. We don't get calmed by an addiction. It's just temporary. We get co-regulated. I feel you feeling me. That back and forth, back and forth. A relationship isn't something out there. It's minute to minute. It's happening between us right now. We are data streaming all the time. Okay, that's what relationship is. minute to minute. So how do we now take this into really a practical, what can we do on a practical level? Oh, so I've said some of the yoga and that, and meditation. We can take on after this talk. We can write an email, that's kind. We can send a text message. We can post on social media if we like. But remember that people are not out there somewhere on our phone. So let's relate to them as if they were in the room with us, because that's where true healing comes. And my work is very influenced by Thomas Hubel, who says, every time trauma is healed, and as we spoke about the collective aspect, we restore part of our past and make possible a brighter future for ourselves and succeeding generations. We transform separation, othering, and scarcity into relation, interdependence, and abundance. We tend to, Claire brought up the whole societal concept. We tend to teach that if you need help, I think Winnie the Pooh, it was his hardest word, help, or was it Eeyore, his friend? What was his hardest word? Help. We taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness, but it's not. So we are interrelated. That's why we come together in spaces like this, where this is where magic happens, because we're sitting here with all our computers switched on, and all our wisdoms. Each one of us has a wisdom library, but it belongs to the bigger library of humanity. So in my wisdom library, I've got certain things that I can bring, but so do all of us. And that's where we enrich and come together with everybody. Comments, questions?
Beautiful.
I think it's very important that you keep focusing on the relational aspect, because there is something about severe trauma that isolates us from each other. And I think it should be more normative to be able to lean on each other, but it isn't. You have to create a space.
So that's where
you have to
and that's so beautiful. If each one of us takes on after this call to reach out to someone, how are you doing? Just that's exactly it, Claire. Like, oh wow, that's so nice. Oh, I remember you had a birthday yesterday, was it? Happy birthday. That is our relational ability, and we can do it. Sometimes we need to reparent ourselves, but when we go out, when we live in contribution, that's when we're not looking inward at the depression, but in contribution, that's where we thrive. And contribution to ourselves always. So thank you for that, Claire.
Bev, I have a question. It's a little bit unrelated to relating to other people. It's just back to the point of healing trauma. I heard recently something interesting, and I just wanted to ask you or ask Stephanie. Right in the beginning, you spoke about there's big traumas and there's smaller traumas, and everybody reacts differently. Somebody I heard recently said that in the scope of a big trauma, if somebody experiences, whether to themselves it was big or if it just was big on a scale of traumas, they say it takes about a year and a half to heal. In other words, time is a healing factor, and that's the general time frame. I just wanted to ask your particular comment on that.
Anybody else like to answer before I have a go?
I think it's extremely individual. I don't think anything can be generalized. I'm a therapist. I've had people coming in talking about issues that happened 45 years ago. And there has been some healing depending on their whole circumstance, etc. But in many ways, there hasn't been healing. They're still reacting to whatever it was, and just while I'm there, I would just reinforce what you said much earlier about the use of alcohol and drugs. My main experience in my past life in South Africa was in addiction. And I totally agree that addiction, you know, alcohol, drugs, other things, shopping, gambling, you know, other kinds of things are often used to try and cover up, cope with whatever, the pain of whatever it was that happened. I often only knew about the trauma that had happened to someone when they were very young, many years later, when they were alcohol or drug dependent and coming in for treatment or therapy, treatment and medical treatment and therapy. I just wanted to, you know, endorse that. But Tanya, in answer to your specific question, I think it's such an individual thing. I really don't think that you can generalize at all. In fact, part of, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking aloud, part of really being with somebody in every sense, the full sense of listening properly, is hearing that their individual reaction is individual.
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That makes a lot.
I love that.
I think if the trauma continues and the functioning of the person gets worse over time, then you are talking about PTSD, and that is something different completely, you know, and that will take a long time to get over. But if there is some improvement in functioning, then that's all you do. Everybody does it at their own pace. Depends on, you know, their inner strength, their inner learning experience, how they've coped before with trauma, whatever sort.
Right. So Tanya, there's the individual trauma, and you do want to see that person getting sort of back on their feet and managing. Then the collective trauma, say the Holocaust, is still unintegrated, right? And it's been a generation maybe. It might take many generations to look at our woundings and notice the scarring. And that's why I said we were all born into a traumatized world already, right? There are many traumas, not just the Holocaust. I'm just bringing that up. There's the Palestinian Jewish trauma, right, that we all live with if we live in Israel. Those can take generations. And as Jean was saying, but they're expressed in the individual. So it's not like, oh, I had a father from the Holocaust. It's expressed, yes, in my personal biography.
Right.
And that can take many years. And it can also be healing, though, for my ancestors, if I take it on. It's almost like a fire in the woods and somebody says, stop. I want to face that fire and look. But I like to say we don't have a stopper. You know, because I think it gives you a new identity, your trauma as well. You become a different person. Does that kind of help answer? Any other questions or thoughts? So what will you each take away? What is your takeaway from today for yourselves?
I'm very, very impressed, Bev, with how much information you managed to get out there in such a short period of time. Every point was important and relevant, and there was it wasn't a wasted moment. And it just gives me a feeling of wanting more and wishing I had this as a permanent part of my life in a regular way. Which I do actually, but I can never get enough of it.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else want to share what they're going to take from this?
Do you have handouts for this or just recording?
I'm going to send you the, I don't have a handout, but I'll send you the PowerPoint if you like.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, I think we'd all like that.
Yes, please.
Because you know what, Bev, I think there's so much to take from this evening. Each particular point is probably a world on its own. I mean, mindfulness, probably a vast amount to still discuss and to learn, and connecting with other people and empathy and dealing with shame. And at one point you mentioned resting, just resting. That's obviously not when you're going through the trauma. That's also such an important, it just seems that this is the tip of the iceberg.
That's beautiful, because that's what trauma is. It is, we only see that tip, and there's all that unconscious material. So that's a very good way of expressing it. It's all under that ocean that I was talking about, where the television continues to play. Jean, any takeaways?
I think it was beautifully done. I'd endorse what Claire said. You've packed a lot into a very concisely into a very short time. It's been interesting, lovely meeting you all and being able to share a little bit. Koraka Vodam, thank you.
Pleasure. What about you, Susan? Thank you. Oh, Susan, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Okay. I have to apologize.
Susan, could you put, you've got two things on. Can you put one off?
But I don't know how to do it. It's my phone.
Turn it off.
Just turn your phone off.
Okay. Sorry, I have to. I don't know. I can't do it. But I have to apologise. I had a problem with my so I haven't been on it all the time. I haven't been able to listen to it. I've been on it on my phone, but I couldn't hear everything. I can hear now. I'm still having a problem. But what I heard was absolutely amazing. I say thank you very much for what I have heard. And I don't know what I shall take away. I think the healing of trauma, I think is fantastic. I would like to know a little bit more about that. So I would say thank you very much.
Great.
Let's just try and sort this out now. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Cecily, would you like to talk into... I think it's Claire. Claire, can you put yourself on mute, please? Or I can put oh, there we go. Cecily, would you like to speak into how we spoke about possibly moving forward and see? I will send an email out, but let's just maybe open it up for the few minutes that we've got left.
For us, the idea of resolving and helping people go through trauma is about connections. And we are proposing offering a support group with this in mind. I just want to know if it's feedback and if you feel there's going to be a demand, how you see it going, and if you're interested, really. It's our gut feeling that there is a need, but it's up to you.
Would people be interested? We will open it obviously up more. This is an idea that I think we spoke about last Tuesday, and Cecily was like, just go and get it done. So we didn't even have a lot of advertising time, which we would. A support group would possibly look 6 weeks through Ezra, which is highly subsidized, and 6 90-minute sessions with a closed group. Would that interest anybody? I think there are a few therapists in the group. Okay. I think there are a few therapists in the group. That could also be nice to even do it as a therapy group as well. People, but I don't know.
Okay, so we will send you the information. We'll ask you to reply, and if you feel that you know other people who might want to participate, let them contact us as well. And I just hope that this has been something that's been of benefit to you.
Right, thank you. And I just want to say that Susan is sitting here quietly, but she actually organizers with Cecily one-on-one. If anybody feels that they need anybody one-on-one, to turn to Ezra, and there are several counselors who would be more than happy to meet with you. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful session and getting to know you and your wisdom.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Thank you all for your time.
Beverly, if you want to put my number, if you're sending out emails, you want to put my number on if anyone wants to contact me, you know, for any further
okay, I'm going to put that on.
Anything.
Oh, okay, Susan. Okay, perfect. I will send an email out. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
And thank you, Cecily, too.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.